such exciting progress and so many levels of teaching that you're getting from your faculty. So it's always fun to peek in on what's going on. So some of the things that I think are already together are that you're physically very organized, integrated. I love that if there was a tiny little rain blip, she completely stayed in the performance, right? We had no idea you were chastising yourself, you just kept going, which is great. You've known how to do that since you were 3. Just stay on stage. And very full concerto-like sound, really beautiful sound. What we might want to talk about today is how to get this to feel even more classical, as opposed to any other period music. So suppose, anybody awake today? Suppose just off the top of our heads we list anything that comes to mind that makes the style of a piece sound classical. And of course I mean as opposed to Baroque, contemporary Romantic. What makes it distinctly classical? And it's okay to say really obvious things too. So, anything come to mind?
Character, like having some, well, definitely Mozart, just having a lot of different characters for the different sections.
That's true. Although I think Berlioz does. I mean,
yeah.
Character is what we do when we play music. It's true that Mozart is all about different opera characters, but let's just talk about classical. So, think about a Haydn quartet that you've played, think about another Mozart that you've played, some early Beethoven.
Symmetry?
Symmetry? And what do you mean by that?
Like formal structure, there's a lot of symmetry. Like things tend to end in the way they began.
Yes, they end in the way they began. Kind of beautiful. Yeah, but there's a wonderful appreciation for logic by the classical composers. Not necessarily logical puzzles. Think about what Bach does in his fugues, right? It's really playing with our brains. But there's an idea that the logic should be obvious in classical architecture, in classical prose, right? So we admire clarity of thought, clarity of sound, knowing exactly where we are, unadorned, clear, transparent melody. What else? Lots of slides, lots of rubato. Yes?
Well, in addition to very clean playing, I think stark contrast between stormy sections and then bright sections can distort the sound.
That's true. Yeah.
It's very periodic. Like the phrases are very uniformly structured, and when they're not, that kind of signifies it's a little bit more important.
Yeah, it's very interesting when it's not, right?
Yeah.
We expect 4-bar phrases and we get them. Yeah, that's true. So I was just hinting that we have a fairly constant pulse, right? I was joking that we don't have as much rubato as we do in Tchaikovsky concerto. What about fingerings? When you choose fingerings for a classical piece? Yeah.
Minimize shifts.
Yeah, except maybe in a slow movement where the soprano would definitely slide and it's this glorious moment, but it's a single moment, right? So we choose clear fingerings, but we also choose sometimes the lower, more resonant ones. I love your fingerings, they're great. What about bow strokes?
Some lighter bow strokes.
Great.
For shorter sections and maybe like longer ones for...
True, but the longer ones are also true of Baroque.
Right.
Baroque. So particularly we're looking at what are the shorter bow strokes like. What are some names for some of those shorter bow strokes?
Spiccato.
You may have your own name for them. Yeah, several kinds of spiccato, the fast sautille ones and controlled ones. There could be ricochet in some of the Mozarts, right? Definitely some collé. Is everybody know collé? Use your fingers and you do a little up near the frog. When I said there's several kinds of spiccato, I mean, I teach spiccato as 2 different strokes because I feel like this kind is a controlled spiccato. I'm using my arm, I'm holding onto the bow. I'm lower in the bow and it's reasonably slow and it's reasonably loud, right? So I'm really in control here. This, let's see, I'm not going to do sautille, I'll do something in between, not quite as fast as sautille. This is what I call uncontrolled spiccato because it's really the bow's doing the work. You use a loose hand, you're kind of catching it, you're not controlling it. How do you feel about that kind of spiccato? Are you comfortable with spiccato in the middle of the bow?
Sometimes.
Sometimes you might want to add some.
Okay.
So if I were to summarize, I thought that was interesting to try to come up with a list of traits that make something sound classical. But if I were just to choose one particular direction from that we could add, I know this sounds corny, but it would be spark. So the way, and it's kind of translucence, but also kind of energy. So there are 2 ways we could work on this sparkle. One is a more taut sense of rhythm. So the dotted rhythms, the little 16th note could be later.
Okay.
Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. And maybe if I say talk, maybe that also means even shorter sometimes. If you listen to the negative of that picture, if you listen to the silence, it's pretty loud. Or in exactly how short you want it. And then also we could add more off-string strokes to make things kind of bubble over a little bit. Should we go from the beginning? Let's go for that sharp dotted rhythm. Much better. By the way, we're all interested in finding that note. This time it wasn't quite centered. Make sure when you're doing whatever method you're doing to find it, that you're teaching yourself how much around you have to be, because it's an extended half position. If I set up this way, I'm likely to be flat. Okay, so we want sparkle. Maybe that grace note should come as late as possible. Would you mind playing right now? And then second. Okay, so you're going to come off on your down bow. Can you try that much? Good. Try this, the pause that I'm putting in. Pause, hit. Really beautiful. So speaking of choosing clear fingerings, you could do as, just because I think the singer probably wouldn't enjoy that note as much as she would enjoy her rock one. When you get to the rest, could you phrase over them? Because really, he's got the fingers right in there. What's a good place to start there? To let yourself do it, right? And maybe it would be wise, I don't know what your warm-up routine is, but to include in your scale warm-ups and staccatos so it feels natural for you to turn on. Okay. I'm going to jump around because we're running out of time. So I'm still going for clarity, but two different clear voices. So the way I do that is, I don't know where you're going, is it up? So I'm trying to kind of punch the up voice. This will come up pretty naturally. You want to go back from...
Oh, mine, yeah. Yeah.
I heard you thinking it. Couldn't really hear this one. Can you try just up those for a minute? And now think. Right. Good. The first high soprano note needs to pop out, and we can hear it's the same voice. So it's an A, right? Nice. So we're running out of time. So some of the things we talked about were articulation, a sort of more taut sense of pulse, and sometimes that applies particularly to jazz rhythms. And sending the energy out was part of the clarity, and spiccato. Now this brings up the question of, she's playing a cadenza by Joachim. Who's Joachim?
Brahms' friend.
Brahms' friend. Is Brahms classical?
No.
So you have every right to play cadenza in a totally different style. You choose to say, look, this is really Brahms concerto language, it's Joachim. I wouldn't try to make it classical if it wasn't written in a classical way necessarily. I recognize it.